Right then, something I've wanted to talk about all morning, and we're finally now getting to. I wanted to talk about this yesterday as well, actually, but there are so many people we want to talk about who are, of course, observing Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath, and we couldn't get them on. Totally understandable, but let's talk about it now. The Jewish University chaplain forced into hiding after receiving hundreds of death threats against him and his family over his role as a reservist in the Israeli army. He's got a young family. This is Rabbi Zecharia Deutsch, his wife Nava. Their 2 children were moved to a safe location on police advice amid a shocking hate campaign. I'm going to read out a little bit of detail of this. You might want to, if you've got kids in the car or something, you might want to turn this down for maybe just 20 seconds. Pro-Palestinian campaigners have accused him of genocide after he returned to Israel after Hamas's the 7th of October terror attacks to serve in the IDF, the Israeli Defence Force, the Israeli army. He resumed his chaplaincy duties last month, leading to an escalation in anti-Semitic threats on campus at Leeds University. On Thursday evening, the hate campaign intensified with hundreds of malicious calls to the family, threats to kill the rabbi and to rape and kill his wife and to murder their children. Who are these people? Who are these people who pick up a phone and make those threats to someone? Horrendous. Forced to flee Leeds with their children. Think of all the distress, the disruption. This is a guy who is a chaplain, a university chaplain. Honestly, the anti-Semitism in some of our universities scares me. It really does. Gary Mond is Chief Executive of the National Jewish Assembly. Gary, this is horrendous. What do you make of it?
The first thing to point out is it's criminal. There's a Parliament Act going back to 1861, which says that death threats are criminal behaviour. And what has to happen is anybody who is suspecting of that should be investigated and arrested. And this is not happening. And that is the big problem, is the force of the law. And Leeds University should expel any students who are found to have taken part in this horrendous activity.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there is so much anti-Semitism on our campuses. A lot of it seems to be associated as well with education in general. I mean, it's yes. The teacher who's been hiding in 2 years after death threats after showing a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. That is in Batley Grammar School in West Yorkshire. Parents and activists protested at the school gates for days. But what we're talking about in Leeds are actual death threats, threats to rape, threats to murder children as well for being a reservist in the Israeli army.
It is disgraceful, though Leeds University do have a track record of anti-Semitism in different types of incident. We had the case nearly 2 years ago of Danielle Grayman, who was a sociology student, whose exam papers on the subject of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority were marked down because she did not criticise Israel. She took Leeds University to court and won significant damages. What needs to happen is that full force of the law needs to be thrown at Leeds University on cases such as that and cases such as this.
Leeds University obviously aren't here to defend themselves. What should they do now, do you think? I mean, you're talking about them taking up individual cases and all of this. I mean, surely they should, and going to the law, and I totally agree with all of that, but surely Leeds University need to stand up and say, we don't want anybody, we don't want any of our students, academics, anybody doing anything that is anti-Semitic or intimidatory to anybody.
100% right, and they need to put into place a plan of action to deal with those who are making death threats against Rabbi Deutsch and his family. That's to start with. And there are probably many other aspects too. There's the defacing and graffiti being written on the Hillel House at Leeds as well. So it goes across the board. There's a question, number one, of Leeds University investigating and dealing with it. And number two, if all else fails, the full force of the law against the Jew haters.
We've got to give Leeds University their place. They said of the vandalism, we are deeply saddened that our Jewish community appears to have been targeted by this criminal act. The university takes incidents of this nature extremely seriously, and the safety and welfare of our students and staff is our #1 priority. We recognise staff and students across our community have been deeply affected by the ongoing conflict in Israel and Gaza, and will continue to provide support. We are working with the police and the property owners as they investigate this incident, and have supported the UJC, presumably that's a University Jewish organisation,
yes.
In swiftly cleaning and repainting the property. I mean, cleaning and repainting the property, I'm glad they've done that, but at the same time, there's a lot more, I think, that Leeds University could do.
Yes, absolutely, and this is what I was saying before. We need to actually investigate who is responsible for the threats against Rabbi Deutsch and take action against them. That is, I think, fundamental.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. I just want to ask you about another thing. We're going live to Israel in just a few minutes, actually, but I just want to ask you as well about the UNRWA, the aid agency. I know we've discussed this before, Gary. Their Gaza headquarters, it is on top of a top-secret Hamas data centre. Lots of computers, electrical room, industrial battery, power banks, and so on. They didn't see anything. This was news to them. This was news to their UN refugee agency.
Well, it's a matter for each and every one of us to consider who's telling the truth here. But what I'm looking forward to seeing is what the Israeli government are going to do about it, particularly with regard to having any form in the future of involvement for UNRWA in any activities going forward of an aid nature. We need to look for alternatives to UNRWA to provide aid.
There is a humanitarian crisis there. Are you worried that the Israeli government's actions, the Israeli army's actions in Rafah, if they invade, will lead to a real humanitarian catastrophe there? Because so many people have been told to go to Rafah, yet the Israeli army are thinking of invading.
My first concern is that Israel wins the war. We're fighting against a genocidal terrorist organization, which is supported by a large number of Palestinians too. Don't think they're acting in isolation against the wishes of the Palestinian people. Many of them actually support Hamas. My first concern is that Israel wins this war. It's in all our interests, because don't forget the saying, first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people.
Gary, thank you very much indeed. That's Gary Mond, who's Chief Executive of the National Jewish Assembly. Christine and Surrey's been in touch. Good point here. Peter, don't forget Catherine Burbelsing, head of the Michaela Community School in North West London. Bomb threats to life, racism. This Islamist creep must be stopped, says Christine. Penny in Essex says, what on earth is going on in these universities? Anti-Semitism is rife. Is this all these idiots are learning? No wonder the world will never be at peace. It's unbelievable, says Penny in Essex, who says it's a brilliant show, and thank you for that.